There's good news for climate change. So economic growth no longer requires rising emissions. There's good news against the fight against climate change, and normally it's pretty hard to find. We miss targets, we break promises, and the planet keeps getting hotter. There's a large and a growing group of mostly rich countries that's broken the link between economic growth and rising pollution or rising emissions. That's what we put out in greenhouse gases. For like the past 300 years or so, since the fossil fuel age began, living standards and the pollution we put out kind of rose together. Coal and then oil and natural gas. All of this brought prosperity while also raising global temperatures. This link has led some environmentalists and scientists to argue that only a program of degrowth, that's where you reduce the pace of improvements in overall prosperity, or you reverse them altogether, that was the only way to avoid the worst effects of climate change. But over the past 10 years, there's a growing number of countries, 33 of them, home to like 1 billion people, they managed to increase gross domestic product while reducing their emissions. After a peak back in 2007, America was able to reduce its territorial emissions from 6.1 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent to 5.2 billion tons right before the pandemic. And it's not because Americans are simply importing toys and electronics from dirtier places. Strikingly, consumption emissions, which include a measure of the carbon emitted in imports, that's fallen by over 15% in the same period. This is called decoupling, and decoupling is a result of two big shifts. One is a change in the structure of our economies. As countries got richer, they expanded their service sectors, which use less energy than manufacturing. Now, if you look at Britain, that's the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. 4/5 of the output there is now generated by like accountants and shop assistants and other service workers. Even over in Germany, who basically grew its industry on manufacturing, manufacturing share of gross domestic product there is falling. That's reduced the energy intensity of growth. Second, imports are getting greener. In the decade after the financial crisis, China's export sector decarbonized way faster than the rest of the economy. This has helped reduce the total carbon footprint of rich countries. Furthermore, manufacturing is moving out of China, which is more polluting per dollar of GDP than, say, Indonesia or India. Now, this decoupling, it's unambiguously good news, but with the link unbroken in many poorer countries, it's not been enough to reduce the pace of increase in global emissions. Our task is to speed up this decoupling of the economy. That would not only demonstrate that tackling climate change and improving living standards can go together, it will also allow poorer parts of the world to use more of the remaining global carbon budget to get a lot richer. Now, there's good things here. To think such an acceleration is possible, it's a good idea. Decoupling so far has been achieved by reducing the energy needed per unit of output, but there are big gains to be made from making energy greener in the first place. Thanks to investment in renewables and greater electrification, such gains can be seen. That might even boost long-term growth. An economy that has to scrimp and save to conserve energy, it's less dynamic than one where power is green, abundant, and cheap. Think solar. So some environmentalists might get upset by this. They can think that celebrating such good news can have a perverse effect by breeding complacency or making climate change seem less urgent. In fact, this lack of a trade-off between improving living standards and tackling climate change should be a reason for us all to move a lot faster. So, decoupling, it's pretty awesome.